Yeah, Aaron, as you said before, it started with Colin Kaepernick. He was on the San Francisco 49ers. He started taking the knee in 2016, I believe, and he did it in protest. He was protesting the treatment of Black and brown people in this country, and it was a silent, personal protest that, we're calling it taking the knee because literally all he did was bend down during the national anthem. And from there, it just kind of exploded. Other NFL teams are doing it now. Teams in the NCAA, which is the college level, high school athletes, even other sports. Recently, we saw teams in the MLB, the WNBA, and a NASCAR driver spoke out about this issue. So that's why I think that now we can kind of call it a movement, because not only has it gone out of the NFL into other sports, but even separate from sports, we have high school students, middle school students, elementary school students taking the knee during the pledge or the national anthem in class. And it's a different forum than sports because, and we're going to talk about this later.
Yeah, it's different when we're talking about kids in school. We're going to get into that.
Right. In sports, you are, depending on what level of sports you're participating in, it can be school sponsored, it can be in a public forum, but when you're talking about students in school, the right to protest is a little bit different. It's not so limited that you don't have a right to protest, but there are certain parameters that students have to stick within.
And these are cases that have gone all the way to the Supreme Court in this country over a lot of years of our history. And so, and we're going to talk specifically about some of the leading cases, because as we look at what's happening around the country, and you mentioned professional athletes and even college athletes, but it's beyond even that at this point. There are musicians like Stevie Wonder took the knee at a concert in support of, in solidarity with, you might say, some of the professional athletes who have led this protest, and others. So it's culturally and in our culture, in the arts, in sports, this is something that's growing. I know, one of the big questions is, I think, going to be not just the right to protest, but the form of the protest. And these are issues that become so emotional because they get at values and ideas and beliefs that people have that are so close and personal, maybe religious, maybe to a sense of what people think it means to be an American. And Josh, we've seen this in our history, not just recently, but for decades, whether it was protests involving the burning of the American flag, or
the Vietnam War,
protesting the Vietnam War, musicians, getting political at their concerts. I know, there are people who won't go to a Bruce Springsteen concert because he's become so identified. His personal politics have become so identifiable, and there are those people who will shout, "Just play the damn music, Bruce." I don't want to hear. So, or people who talk about Hollywood, Hollywood stars getting involved politically. So we people are very passionate about this, but at the same time, it's as American as anything else,
exactly.
Right?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, this is not new. America is a country that was started with a revolution, and it's been a very political country ever since. Americans are very political. They're very opinionated. We're very passionate about our ideas and our ideals. And it's not a coincidence that the very first amendment to the Constitution is all about preserving and protecting that character of America as being a place where it's okay to express your opinions and where you're safe to do that. And that has taken on different forms over the years, but we see it. It's so interesting when you look at the cases, First Amendment cases, particularly student First Amendment cases, are some of the least boring cases you'll ever read. They're some of the most interesting. Some of them are actually downright funny in some cases, about how the very American tradition of protest has manifested itself in schools. And it's not a coincidence that the most important landmark cases that the U.S. Supreme Court has dealt with occurred during times of great social unease, usually wars. World War II, the Vietnam War. The two big cases that we'll probably talk about the most came about during the height of the Vietnam War and just after World War II.
Just before.
Just before World War II and during.
1943.
Right. So that's not a coincidence. And we'll talk about this, I'm sure, but it is not a coincidence that this issue is now coming up today, because while we are at war, we've been at war for a very long time, but also there's no question that Colin Kaepernick started to do what he did because he realized and he recognized and he was extremely concerned about what he views as being effectively a war in this country against Black and brown people. And it's happening at a time when America is feeling more, in effect, divided than ever and uncertain about the future of our civic dialogues. It's not a coincidence that this is happening now. That is the entire story of these cases that go through the courts.
Yeah, I mean, I think some might say that the characterizing what's going on as a war, is maybe an extreme way of putting it. I would probably say that too, but I think clearly that we are in a period of great
social unrest.
The passions, attention in the media, in discussions around the table, in our courts, whether it's another white police officer shooting an African American man pulled off to the side of the road, or whether it's a debate over the Confederate flag or Civil War era Confederate leaders and their statues on the public square. I mean, these issues are, the civil rights movement is not over. We are in the midst of intense debate and political, right. Maybe even turmoil right now. And I think so. These issues you're right, are coming up in a time of intense social and cultural and political feelings on these.